Watch this.
Planned Parenthood versus the state of Idaho. Today's arguments for and against 3 recently enacted laws on abortion, ahead on the 208, how each side fared in presenting to the state Supreme Court. Flagging a problem. North End flags of LGBTQ support have been targeted multiple times. Now, one was burned on a front porch. Motivation is in question as Boise police investigate. You ask, so we're looking into it. You wanted to know when Dr. Pate and Dr. Epperly's book on COVID-19 and the pandemic is out. So we sat down with Dr. Pate to talk about his book and lessons learned. Big day in the debate over Idaho's abortion laws. Pundits from far and wide have weighed in on the 3 Idaho abortion laws that have been enacted in recent months. Today, the debate, it really counts, and by debate, I mean the official court proceedings. Earlier today at the Idaho Supreme Court, they heard arguments for and against the 3 state abortion laws, including the so-called trigger ban that took effect in August. And we've talked about it a lot here on the 208. That's the law that made abortion a felony in Idaho, except in cases of rape or incest or when the mother's life is in danger. Now, counsel for Planned Parenthood, attorney Alan Schoenfeld, was given 1 hour for arguments and rebuttal. The Idaho Attorney General's office, they split their time today, an hour with private counsel for the Idaho legislature. So each side of the argument got about an hour to make their case for or against the abortion laws. And there's a lot to dig into, but the most talked about exchange following court today focused on the discussion of the exceptions in the Idaho abortion law. The phrasing for an exception that the, quote, abortion is necessary to prevent the death of a pregnant woman. That was debated in court today, and Supreme Court Justice Stegner questioned the AG's counsel on that topic.
And I think this goes to this kind of misconception that has been articulated about 18622, that it bans all abortions. It does not. It allows for abortions in the case where the abortion is necessary to protect the life of the mother. So where there are 2 lives at stake, then the woman's life is protected. It's simply—
What about her health?
The woman's health is
not mentioned in the statute.
Is not mentioned in the statute. And I wowould not read 18622's affirmative defense as saying that an abortion is allowed when necessary to protect the woman's health. It is only when the abortion is necessary to protect the woman's life.
So we don't care about the woman's health?
I disagree with that, Your Honor.
Show me how we care about that when we haven't mentioned it in the statute and you said it wouldn't be applicable.
The concern at the point of the woman's health is that an abortion would take the fetus's life. And so when we have lives at stake, the legislature has drilled down to the point of protecting life. And so the fetus's life cannot be terminated at the expense of the woman's health, but it can be terminated to save the woman's life.
So you're saying we don't care about the woman's health?
I disagree with that. I disagree with that articulation, Your Honor. We certainly do care.
I didn't understand your distinction that you were drawing.
Well, we care about the woman's health, but we care about life, the life of the fetus as well.
So the life of the fetus overcomes the health of the mother?
Yes, Your Honor, because the legislature is concerned with and the drafters of the Constitution, because that was the law that was in effect when they were drafting, were concerned with drilling down and protecting life. And so when life came at the expense of life, then the woman's life could be protected. But when health came at the expense of life, the fetus's life is the thing that is protected.
Major point of debate, the Idaho Constitution and what the very beginning of it says. So let's read the beginning of the Idaho Constitution here together, shall we? This is Section 1, Inalienable Rights of Man. It says, quote, all men are by nature free and equal and have certain inalienable rights, among which are enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, pursuing happiness, and securing safety. So what does that mean in the context of abortion laws in Idaho? It depends on who you ask, but if you ask counsel for Planned Parenthood, they will say it includes abortion rights for women in Idaho.
As of the date of enactment, the Idaho Constitution recognized a right to be left alone, a right to privacy. Those are fundamental rights that I think the Constitution reserved to the people under Section 21. This court has had no difficulty concluding that those are fundamental rights.
One word in Section 1 of the Constitution has been debated for months: liberty. What exactly does that mean? How far does it extend in this conversation? The Idaho Attorney General's office made the case after being asked by Justice Zahn about liberty and autonomy.
So are you saying the right to liberty does not include the right to make decisions about my own body?
I'm not saying that, Your Honor. I'm saying that the right to liberty stops when that decision about making your own choices about your own body takes a potential human life.
So there you have it, arguments in court, and that's what today was about, making those arguments in court on all three of Idaho's recently enacted abortion laws. As you imagine, counsel for Planned Parenthood, they made their arguments to have the law struck down, and counsel for the state and the Idaho legislature made arguments defending the law, saying they're clean as is and they're only trying to protect life in Idaho. Now, there's no timeline as to when Supreme Court justices here in the state will release an opinion and ruling, but likely in the coming week or so. We'll wait and watch with you and update you when that becomes available. 2 years in a row, someone has taken down pride flags on Harrison Boulevard in recognition of Pride Month. And community members rallied to get new flags hung up right in their place. But those aren't the only flags getting targeted. A North End couple says that their flag has been taken down 3 times now, and they say the problem in their neighborhood is escalating. They tell us this time their flag was set on fire. And the Boise Police Department says this is now under investigation as a motivated act of prejudice. And the North End couple, well, they're facing this head on. They spoke with Andrew Bartline.
The Boise North End is hard to beat.
Oh, I love this neighborhood. It's beautiful, it's community driven, it's walkable, bikeable, it's connected to nature. You're so close to downtown.
It's been home to Brett Perry.
Jimmy, good to see you.
And for 13 years, he and his husband wouldn't have it any other way, except for one.
It's really just recently, within the last 6 or 7 months, that these attacks have happened.
Brent came home Wednesday to this.
Y'all, this is our progress flag.
A symbol of inclusivity burned right through the fabric. It sent a message to Brett and his husband.
It feels like it's escalating. The burning of the flag feels like it is pushing it forward into a scary moment.
Pushed forward from the previous 2 flags, because twice before, their flags have been targeted or stolen.
A neighbor down the way had a progress flag stolen, so I think it's common. I don't know if people are reporting it.
But Brett did, and the flag burning at his house is now under investigation as an incident of bias. That's an act motivated by intolerance or prejudice. But according to Boise police, this wasn't the only vandalism reflected Tuesday toward the LGBTQ community. The community center on Orchard boarded up their windows. That's after someone smashed 2 separate panes. I'm
not surprised. People are feeling able to be violent and to be, aggressive towards each other. It's the political nature that we're in right now. It's very polarized.
BPD suspects the incidents could have happened roughly an hour apart, but there's no information suggesting the incidents are related. The investigation is ongoing. I
think that is a sort of a wake-up call that we just all need to be aware of.
While the fabric of the flag is easily replaceable,
there's melted pieces on the floor.
That's not what concerns Brett the most.
Don't let these people push you out.
This neighborhood is Brett's home, and this flag is his community.
Let's move forward with kindness. We're all want to take care of this community. We all want to live our best lives, and as freely and as proudly as we can. And we have to support each other in that. We don't be silenced by this, we hang more flags.
After the first flag was taken down, Brett and his husband installed a doorbell camera to try to stop any further problems. The last 2 times people have gone after their progress flags, that doorbell camera had been blocked, which to them suggests this isn't a careless act or someone who isn't thinking mindlessly and just causing trouble. Brett is upset, and they're hoping that there is some good that comes from this, community coming together, things of that aspect. And he already says, between his conversations with his neighbors, that's exactly what's happened so far, Joe.
Well, as you mentioned, that is an escalating incident there. I mean, lighting a flag on fire, that could very easily catch a house on fire, and even if that wasn't the intent.
Yeah, the whole front structure of their house is wood, too. So, I mean, that was an immediate concern they had as well.
And those homes in the North End some of them are right on top of each other, so escalating there. All right, Andrew Bartline reporting. Thank you so much. We're going to step aside. 208's back after this. Well, the best part of this show is you, our viewers, and we love your input, whether it's questions, stories, ideas, comments, critical feedback. Bring it on, we can handle it. Well, the latter here, the comments, that spurred this next story. Now, COVID-19 is a term that many would like to put in the past and leave it there forever, but Dr. David Pate, formerly of St. Luke's, he ran the health system there, and he was also on the governor's COVID task force. Well, alongside Dr. Ted Epperly here in Boise, they're writing a book about the lessons that they learned about the pandemic and how to potentially handle a pandemic in the future. We originally reported this to you earlier this year. We told you the book would likely be out the summer of 2022. Well, that brings us to a question here. Irma asks, what is the status of the book about COVID-19 being written by Dr. David Pate and Dr. Ted Epperly? It's a great question, Irma. So we talked to Dr. Pate today about how the book is coming together and what readers can expect.
Well, we're very excited. Dr. Epperly and I are very pleased. The book is finished being written. We've been going through an editing process. I'm reading it through the actual typeset prints. That is how it'll appear in the book. So we're actually a little bit ahead of schedule on that regard. Dr. Epperly and I were very much hoping that it would be out before the end of the year, especially in time for Christmas, because who wouldn't like a book about a pandemic? But it looks like Johns Hopkins University Press is saying the release date will be April 18th. We're hoping that gets moved up, but I know there's a lot of behind the scenes things that go on that, you know, we don't understand, but it's been a very long process, but it's very gratifying. As I reread the book, I find that the points that we made are just as salient today as they were when we finished writing about a year ago.
And some of those points, I guess, you know, we don't want to spoil the book. We want people to read it in depth, but I guess tease us a little bit. What are some of the points that readers will come away with? Yeah,
and, you know, this book is really written so you don't have to know anything about virology or immunology or epidemiology. On the other hand, it's also written with a lot of pearls for those who are in the field, because as we know, we made many mistakes. And so part of the book, the purpose is just to document what happened. And even though some of the lessons will seem pretty obvious at this point, they're all mistakes that we made. And they're things that we should have learned from years and decades and centuries ago. So we're getting it all documented and putting those lessons in place for the next one. But the other thing that this book does that no other book that I'm aware of, and I think I've read almost every COVID book there is, but what this really does is talk about, okay, what do we do different for the next pandemic, the next global threat? And what are some different approaches and what is important to learn from this? For example, you know, Joe, I've been very critical of school boards. So there is an entire chapter about how do you govern when it's high complexity and high risk, and what could a school board, and this could be applied to others as well, what would you do from the beginning to avoid getting to the point where when I was called in, teachers had just announced a sick out and parents were picketing. You don't want to get to that point. And so we lay out a whole plan of what you could do and how to manage the next pandemic, which will be different. And I don't think that our book is particularly controversial. That's not to say that every expert will agree with everything that we say, but they're ideas, they're proposals, and they're things that, like you said, I hope we could have a rational discussion about. And out of the 117 recommendations, if we could just agree that half of them make sense and we ought to do that, we'll be in better shape for next time.
Dr. Pate says that the book is ready for pre-order by the publisher, Johns Hopkins University. It's available on their website. He tells us the official release date right now, April 18th, 2023. All right, let's turn the temperature down a little bit and let's jump in the time machine. 100 years ago, there are thousands of historic events from all over the Gem State. Today, in 1922, in south central Idaho, there was a lot to do in Oakley. So we wanted to take a look at the headlines from Oakley Herald to show the positivity that locals strived for back 100 years ago today.
It's the Oakley Herald for October 6, 1922. And don't forget, it's a newspaper for optimistic people and people who want to become optimistic. Top headline, workman in Posey receives stiff sentence. Charged with holding up and robbing Five Point Stage last June. Workman draws 25 years in the federal pen. Posey is sent up for 3 years at the same place. Workman was found guilty not only of robbing the mails, but of jeopardizing the life of the stage driver. Posey was found guilty of robbing the mails. In other news, J.W. Toomey will make his headquarters in Oakley. The city fathers met Tuesday and decided that the curfew ordinance will be strictly enforced in the future. They concluded the parents who allow such children on the street late at night were the ones who should be brought to task. An ordinance providing for a fine of $25 where any child under the age of 16 of age is found on public streets after 9 o'clock. For your local news, Phil Shaw is on the sick list this week, and Joe Metcham left Saturday for Salt Lake City, where he will spend the winter. And farmers this week, they're harvesting immense crops of potatoes. In Blackfoot, not an accident was reported at the Great Southern Idaho Fair, which was attended by thousands. However, not as lucky over in Downey. Hardly Bright was injured while fixing a belt on a thresher. Back in Oakley, a number of people attended the meeting at Oakley Sunday night, and everyone present thought it was wonderful. No word at press time on exactly what that meeting was about. And finally, seniors, don't forget about the biggest and best affair of the season at the high school Friday night. There will be elaborate decorations and admission only 75 cents. That's what's fit to print here in Oakley, October 6, 1922.
As we turn to weather now, we got a viewer question this week from Mike in Caldwell. Let's jump right to that. Mike asks, where is the best areas in Idaho to see fall colors? In the valley, it's mostly farmland, and higher elevation, those are pines. Well, that's a good question. So the man that has all the answers for us right here at 5 o'clock, Rick Lance is here. Rick, I know it's not hard to find some colors, but in your opinion, where are the best places?
I was going to mention your tie earlier today. We had a lot of color at 4 o'clock. See, he's Bruce Wayne at 4, and then he becomes Batman at 5 o'clock. Takes off the tie.
We'll let you keep your tie on for now.
I'm just too lazy to change it. I've got to do it at 6 o'clock, so I'll have it back on as well. That's the way it works. Anyhow, take a look at some of the fall colors that's already started in the mountains. Some brilliant colors that are taking place up through there. And let me just mention, you know, when you talk about great spots to see, you don't have to go far, especially if you're in Boise, Nampa, or Caldwell. And now Boise is known as
City of Trees?
City of Trees.
There we go.
So there it is. And, you know, we have a lot of non-native trees that have basically been brought up in the area for years and years and years. You know, we have oaks, we have maple, we have ash. So we have a lot of brilliant colors which comes out, which happens to be the reds, the oranges, the yellows, and different things like that. So let me just talk about fall leaves. And, of course, the green belt is one spot. So whenever you see any kind of water sources, for instance, along the green belt, so there you've got it, 25 miles that you can do if you want to. If you just want to ride a bike, you can see a lot of those colors along through there. Sometimes you don't think about this either. Eagle Island State Park. So there's another one that would be beautiful. And then the Payette River Scenic Byway. So if you're going up I-5, or excuse me, what am I doing? I'm in the wrong state. If you're going up 55, okay, let me add another number to there. If you're going up 55, there's 100 miles there along the river. And you know, some gorgeous places, of course, up through there would be Donnelly, Cascade, even in McCall. That looks pretty good. So McCall started out a little bit earlier. They've got quite a few of their colors and they're peaking right now. So if you're thinking about the mountains this weekend, that Payette Scenic Byway would be pretty nice if you want to do a little traveling and spend a little money just by putting gas in the car. But after that, next week, I would say about the middle to the end of next week, we're going to be seeing some brighter colors around here as well, because what we're going to be seeing at this particular point is the fact that we're going to be seeing it peaking here in the Boise area. So you really don't have to go far because we brought the trees in. So that's what I'm talking about. And they're all changing colors. They're not as bright and it's not as many colors as what you might see in New England, but we've got a lot of colors, that's for sure.
So there you go. Those are Rick's picks.
Have a good time. Yeah.
We'll be right back. All right, let's take a look at some of your comments to put this show to sleep. This person says, why aren't you discussing President Biden's marijuana announcements today? That's from Grant. Well, you know what? Grant challenge accepted. Just before the show started, President Biden tweeted that today he announced a pardon of all prior federal offenses of simple possession of marijuana, and he's urging governors to do the same. So you can imagine what the governor of Idaho is likely going to do with this challenge or this request from President Biden, but we don't have an official answer from Governor Little, so we'll circle back to that one maybe tomorrow. Good question, though. But big news from the president there. All right, this person said, you don't have to agree with the LGBTQ community. You don't have to like who they are, but you do have to respect their rights to live freely. Stop with the hate and destruction of personal property. That's from Susan in Meridian. This person says, thanks, Dr. Pate, for giving an update about your book. I look forward to reading it. Thanks to 08 for answering my question. Oh, our pleasure. Thank you for writing in again. And final one here. Love the old-time look at news from the past. Hope you'll keep choosing a new town. And from yesteryear, Brian and Kate, boom, we'll keep doing them. We'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your Thursday. Go Broncos.